Hey guys, and welcome to this not quick tutorial, but this tutorial on Pygame. This is going to be an introduction into Pygame in general, where we're just going to be I'm just going to try and help people set up a basic game class and player class and some game objects so that you can really like grasp the concepts. This will make it a lot easier for you to just continue on your own projects. Um, you'll really understand how a lot of things work in game development after this, I believe, and you'll be able to almost do whatever you want to do. Pygame, a lot of people say Pygame doesn't have a lot of the functionalities of the game engines, but if you put in enough effort, it really can to some extent. There are definitely some things when it comes to a large scale game that you would probably want to use an engine for, but I think you could probably get a lot of what you're going to do done in Pygame depending on the level of effort you put in, because there are some other Pygame YouTubers that really have put out awesome projects and have won game jams and other things like that. So the first thing and also to preface this, I want to say that to go into this, it's kind of important that you have a basic understanding of classes and a little bit of object-oriented programming. We'll get into object-oriented programming later, but we're basically going to be manipulating classes and their attributes at the beginning, and that's how we're going to set up the player and the background and all of that. We won't be going into any of the higher level functionalities of Pygame like the sprites, superclass, and everything. We won't be inheriting any of those methods. We'll just be coding it all out. Okay, so let's cd to the folder that you want to create your project in and create your folder, and then cd to it, but you just type code and then dot for your default editor. I'm going to assume you have some programming knowledge in this, and we're going to create a game.py. You can call this main.py if you want. So if you do not already have Pygame installed, you can pip install Pygame, hit Control tilde to bring up your VS Code terminal. I'm just going to select my base mini conda environment. It's a virtual environment, so basically it already has a bunch of dependencies installed onto it for me. But if you're just using your desktop's environment, then you may want to install pip or look into miniconda or anaconda for creating Python virtual environments. It's pretty nice. But basically, yeah, you'll just pip install Pygame like that. I'm not going to do it because I already have it, but you'll import Pygame at the top here, and then basically we're going to go straight into making our game class. So we'll make a game class like this, and we're not going to take in any arguments for the initialization function. We are going to initialize our Pygame like this, pygame.init. And then we'll create the screen where we are going to use the display method of Pygame and the set mode. And so this only takes a tuple, so we're just going to go 800, 600 because I like that ratio. And then we will do pygame.display. So .display is like this. It's a Pygame method, and we're going to set the caption to. This can be whatever you want. I'm just going to put tug game because then self.clock time.clock. So here we're making, this is how we're going to set our frames and maintain the frame rate. So that basically, if you know anything about time and delta time in games, it's just going to maintain the frame rate so it doesn't make a difference. So it's not going to run if someone has a better GPU. It's not going to run faster for them. So we'll also use self dot running, and okay. So for that, now we're going to create our functions. I have a run function where we take no parameters. And we'll just create these for now. So just follow this. And then I'll explain them after we've made them. Okay. So for the run, this is where we're going to have our main game loop. We're going to handle basically everything that's happening in here. Well, we're just going to basically we're going to take this function and we're going to run it all the time, but it's going to encompass these three functions. So we're going to make our loop with this. We're going to set running equal to true at the beginning. And then we're going to have our loop that runs off of that variable. And here we're going to pass our handle events, yep, update, and render. We're also going to set our frame rate here, and we're going to add, so once this loop ends, we want to make sure that the Pygame is canceled. We're going to have another event handler for, like, in the handle events for quitting out of the game, but we want to make sure that the Pygame event is done. So we're going to do pygame.quit outside of the while loop. So this is like in the handle events, you'll quit out of the game with the X in the top right corner, right? And then it'll run through and it'll still be in this function, but it'll hit this pygame.quit and it'll actually exit it completely. I'm not sure how critical that actually is, but everybody does it, and I'm not going to argue against that since it's not a big deal. But yeah, so here we're going to get the events from the screen, from the window that we create, and we're just going to use the get method of the event method, and we're going to check the type, and this is boilerplate. This is just boilerplate Pygame code. Like, you just have to have a lot of this stuff. This is how we're going to render our character, get the inputs, and make all the changes that we want. So we don't need to do anything yet in the update, but we will fill the screen. We'll just do this color I like. It's like a green grass color, kind of. And you also have to do this pygame.display.flip. So you can think of flip as like, the way that it works is every frame, it's like, you could think of it as like, this is like you could probably do the same thing as like display.update. So this is kind of like flipping the page in a book. So it's going to put whatever's next on the screen. And that's how we're going to be rendering everything, basically. And we'll create a if name main statement down here. And we'll create a instance of the game, and then we'll just do game.run. So that's going to just keep us in this loop until we click the X button. So I believe we should have, yep, okay. So now we actually have this, you know, nice dark green window. We filled it here, so this is where we're filling it with this tuple. A lot of the Pygame functions that you have to be careful when they want a value. A lot of times you have to do this to make it into a tuple. It's not just going to accept 3 integers for the fill value for color code. Alright, so at this point I've realized that the video has already started to get around 10 minutes, so I'm just going to wrap this episode up real quick. And yes, we have our little green display here and window, and whoops. So I would go through and I would make sure that you understand everything that's happening here at least in this simple script that we wrote. So go through and label handling events. This is where we're going to be getting events. So things like collisions and some of the player inputs. And we'll handle the actual player inputs in the update because we're going to create a method for the player class to just handle the movement. But other than that, hope to see you in the next tutorial. Peace.